Are you Summer's daughter? Yeah. I'm Marcy Bowman. Oh, I see. Sherry. I came from LA. He's doing so good. Last week, he's very excited about it. Yeah. So your show reminded me. Nice to meet you too.
So what happened was the total was written 18th century and removed by the Nazis in 1940 from the synagogue and Bohemia.
Would you please rise for the presentation of the colors? Please remain standing for the singing of the national anthem by the West Point Jewish Chapel Cadet Choir. Star Spangled Banner.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I now invite the Shapiro Family Choir, Elliot, Sandy, and David, please render Hatikva.
Almighty God, we recognize that you are the master of creation and the source of all blessing. We thank you for placing throughout history and within the saga of humanity heroes, bedrocks of faith and courage, lives highlighted by mighty roars and acts of sacrifice. We've come together, a congregation before you in one of your houses of worship, to remember those heroes, to mention them, and recall a bit of their tale. Let us be properly inspired today. Let our patriotism be enhanced, our vision and hope uplifted, and our hands strengthened. Let today's message penetrate our hearts and unlock the most noble parts of ourselves in a spirit of love for God and country. Bless all here, our families and loved ones, for it is in your mighty name we pray. Amen.
Can you please come?
No, just one.
I'd like to invite 3 members of Hatzofim, the Israeli Scout movement here in the United States, to come and to light a memorial candle. The Israel Defense Force and security services and the victims of Arab terror, I wish to invite Deputy Counsel of the State of Israel, New York, Mr. Amir Sagai, and with him, Aluf Yaakov Amitor, to light a candle for those. I'd also at this time like for the audience to remember that 2 of our comrades from the IDF, Lieutenant Hadar Golden and Sergeant Oren Shaul, whose bodies are being held prisoner hostage by Hamas in Gaza since 2014. In memory of the members of the armed forces of the United States of America who fell in the defense of this country, I invite to light a candle Garrison Commander Colonel Andrew Hansen, Commander of the Chaplains at West Point, Lieutenant David Jacob, and Jewish Chaplain Captain David Ruderman. In memory of the 41 North American Aliyah vet and Machal volunteers who fell in the defense and the establishment of the State of Israel, I invite 2 veterans of those 2 organizations, Bernie Ellman and Marcy Woolman, to come and light a candle. Service to the State of Israel, I would like to invite to light a candle, Rabbi Mordechai Ruderman, and Department of Corrections Chaplain Justin Van Boutros. Lost his son 2 years. Ridnow. I'm sorry. Rabbi Ridnow lost his son 2 or 3 years ago as a result of a training accident.
This past summer.
Oh, I'm sorry, this past summer. I thought. Shlomo Zalman, may his memory be blessed. A special memorial candle because in the past year we lost a true and dear friend of this organization who in her own way made history. I invite Mr. Paul Kay to come and light a candle for 105-year-old Ruth Gruber. And Paul will be talking later about her. He knew her. This is Jackness of South Huntington Jewish Center for their attendance. Appreciate it very much. Now I'd like to invite the President of the American Veterans of Israel from the officers and directors of our group.
And thank you, Captain Rabbi David Ruderman, for continuing the tradition of allowing us, the American Veterans of Israel, to enter your beautiful house of worship and pay homage to a group of heroes, the historically significant men and women of Machal, and today, especially, Aliyah Bet. We wish you well, Rabbi Ruderman, during your tenure here at West Point as you complete your first year. We would also like to welcome, and I've got quite an impressive list, so if you'd stand when your name is called, and if we reserved applause for the end. Ambassador Vasilios Philippou, High Commissioner of the Republic of Cyprus, whose island nation was commandeered by the British as a prison for thousands of Jews caught trying to run the British blockade. Deputy General Amir Sagi of the State of Israel. Aluf Yaakov Amitor, whose last post was that of National Security Advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu, and who served as head of the National Security Council for more than 2 years. Chaplain Justin Van Boydash, and if I told you I spent a half an hour trying to get that name right, chaplain of the New York City Department of Correction, coincidentally a wonderful article on Chaplain Van Boydash on the front page of the Wall Street Journal this past week. Nancy Spielberg, documentarian and longtime supporter of AVIOC, with special thanks, Nancy, for your award-winning picture, Above and Beyond, a vivid recreation of the establishment of the Israel Air Force. We continue. We would continue further if we had the page here. 1 second, bear with me. Jerry Klinger. Jerry, President of the Jewish American Society for Historic Preservation, who will share his research on the Exodus and tell us about an exciting new project of his in Israel, one which adds to his impressive list of accomplishments in commemorating Jewish history throughout the world. Members of the extended Marcus family, would you stand? Thank you. Veterans of Aliyah Bet and Machal, War of Independence, 1948. Would you stand? To the best of your ability. Give that to Donna. Veterans of the IDF, and we have two special guests, lone soldiers Ben Sklar and Orrin Harton. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, all right, now we can have a good round of applause. Numbers play an important part in Jewish life. The number 70 is such a number. According to Psalm 90, 70 is the length of a person's lifetime. Today, on the special 70th anniversary, we come to celebrate the efforts of some 250 North American men who, manning 10 barely seaworthy ships, tried to break the post-World War II British blockade of mandatory Palestine and bring 35,000 survivors of Shoah to a new home, Eretz Yisrael. In particular, we are making special mention of one ship, the one originally called in Hebrew, the Leaving Europe. Not very catchy, but it fit. The Leaving Europe, but known to the world as Exodus. It is worth noting that between 1934 and 1945, the Jewish community in Eretz Yisrael, the Yishuv, did have a large number of small vessels. And I thought, would that it had been a small number of large vessels, but that was not the case, which tried to break the British blockade against Jewish immigration by bringing tens or even, in some instances, as many as 100 or 200 from Europe. These ships met with varying degrees of success. So why is this ship, the Exodus, different from all other ships? And I wondered, should this question have been asked by the youngest person in the hall? Unlike the others, it carried 4,500 Jews. Unlike the others, it carried two extraordinary Americans, Ruth Gruber, who you will hear more about shortly, a journalist, and the Reverend John Stanley Growell, a Methodist minister, also marked on the ship's manifest as a reporter sent to cover the voyage, but truly a staunch supporter of the Jewish state. And as I believe you will hear more about from Jerry Klinger, the person whose testimony was most believed by a United Nations Commission sent to decide the fate of a land which the British no longer had the appetite to rule. But our story would not be complete if all we did was to celebrate the Exodus as a public relations goldmine. A ship, as Rafi pointed out to me, is merely a steel vessel. It's the men aboard the ship who give it life and purpose. Before it became the Exodus, the subject of our program was the luxurious President Warfield of the old Bay Line, which plied the serene waters of Chesapeake Bay from Baltimore to Norfolk, Virginia. During World War II, it served in two navies, those of the United Kingdom and the United States. After the war, this once beautiful lady, now showing her age and considerable wear and tear, was struck from the Navy Register and returned to her civilian owners. And this is where our narrative begins. Then it was sold to an innocuous-sounding travel company, quote, destined for exotic shores. In this case, truly an understatement. It is not only the crew of the Exodus which we remember today, but all the extraordinary cargo of survivors from the European abattoir. This time, the world press got hold of the story of the passengers and the ship's crew and simply did not let go. If you were to look at clippings of the time, you would realize this story, just like the original Exodus story, was indeed a truly compelling human interest event. one which certainly merits our attention and consideration today and in years to come. This year's program could not have happened if not for the tireless efforts of a small group of dedicated people. I'm talking about members of my board of directors and officers of the American Veterans of Israel Legacy Corporation. I'm pointing to Cy Spiegelman, would you stand, Cy? Who fought in the 1948 War of Independence. Donna Parker, whose father fought in the War of Independence and who met his future wife, a nurse, while recuperating from wounds received in the Battle for Lud and Ramla. And Rafi Maron, who fought in the 1973 Yom Kippur War and took a tank across the Suez Canal. Would you join me in a round of applause for these? You know, I kind of feel guilty. I have it too easy. I come up here for the short speech, but the incredible amount of work that this team has put in today's project is remarkable, and you have my heartfelt gratitude. Finally, we wish to thank Specialist Jason Poussard for setting up this morning's tasty collation, and of course, Lieutenant General Robert L. Caslin, Superintendent of the United States Military Academy at West Point, for his continued support and assistance, and that of his staff in making this event possible. Again, welcome.
I wish to now introduce our next speaker, Colonel Andrew Hansen, Commander, United States Military Academy here at West Point. Well, sadly, not the commander of the Military Academy, but here in his stead. I am here to represent Lieutenant General Caslin and welcome everybody to West Point. I am Andrew Hansen. I am the garrison commander here. You can think of me as the mayor of West Point, from the gate security all the way through basically anything you see from lawn maintenance or care falls under my stead. But one of my most beautiful things that falls underneath my responsibility are our chapels, the temple here, and the rabbi, and all of our other clergymen that are here, and that's an honor and a privilege to be associated with them. I don't want this to be a sad memorial. I want this to be somewhat of a celebration, so I'm going to pose my remarks in that vein. As I am up here to talk about Mickey Marcus, and I don't know if I can do him justice. I have plenty of family members here that I hope can talk about his legacy, but I'll try to do my best. For me, I am a special operations officer by trade. U.S. Army Special Forces. And when I read Mickey Marcus's the legacy, the testimony of Mickey Marcus, I am in awe, and I think, boy, I wish I had him in our ranks in Special Forces. Our motto is De Oppresso Liber, to free the oppressed. And if I can think of no other man that would exemplify this motto more than Mickey Marcus. So briefly, for those of you that may not be familiar with his story, I'll try to encapsulate there very quickly here. A graduate from the United States Military Academy, 1924. After his service in the interwar years, decided to become a lawyer. He embodied what we try to do here at the Military Academy, to have scholarly warriors. And he did that. Became a prosecutor in New York City, went after gangsters such as Lucky Luciano, and then when World War II broke out, he felt the call to serve again, and was organizing ranger training camps in Hawaii, but with the invasion of Normandy, he decided to call to his classmate, General Taylor, Maxwell Taylor, who commanded the 101st Airborne Division, and then with no official airborne training, jumped in
with the 101st in the North. So, generally speaking, that is one heck of a first jump. And my hat is off to him for doing that. Then he, by chance, because the drop was so diverse and officers were spread out all over the place, he took command of a band of paratroopers and fought against the Nazis with great aplomb. And although, shouldn't have necessarily been in that role, he did that, and my hat is off to him again. Was sent back to France, sent back to Britain, came back after the war, was then participated and planned in the war crimes trials in Nuremberg and in Tokyo, and toured Dachau, as I understand, and saw the firsthand the atrocities that were committed by the Nazi regime, and I can only imagine how that now propelled him for the next few years, and how that motivated him to hear the call for the independence of the nascent state of Israel, and to go join in that fray, and to take up arms, and again to lead soldiers, and to act with such courage and dedication, and again the values that we today try to instill in our soldiers, but I can think of no other great value of selfless service, and taking what he believed in his heart and making that an action and going and doing it. Many people can talk about what they would do, many people can pontificate about what they would do, and think that the morals and their values may coincide, but he took those and put them into action. Serving then in the nascent Israeli Defense Force, as I understand, appointed the first Brigadier General of said force. And unfortunately, on the, as I understand, the 10th of June, 1948, he was killed in an unfortunate accident that occurred. And I am a little bit of a revisionist history buff, and I think, what if that day had not happened? What would Mickey Marcus have risen to next? What would he have taken on next? What would have happened in the 56 war, in the 67 war, in the 73 war? Who knows what Mickey Marcus would have done next? What would have been his next calling? I can only imagine. So again, I want to say it's a pleasure to host our distinguished guests here today. Ambassadors and Aloof, thank you for being here. Deputy Counsel, President of the Jewish American Society for Historic Preservation, thank you for attending. You honor us with your presence. I hope everybody can take in the honor and splendor of West Point. I am happy up here today to honor one of our graduates, Mickey Marcus, and just want to celebrate his life and his dedication in our wars. Not only America's wars, not only Israel's wars, our wars. Our wars are the fight for freedom. That is our war. And Mickey Marcus, I think, is the epitome of that soldier. So thank you very much, and I will turn it over.
Now I would like to invite to address the audience to the Bima, Aloof Major General, retired, Yaakov Amitua.
Shalom. I'm very honored to be here and to speak about this, the Aloof Mickey Marcus was the first Aloof in the Israeli history, and about the volunteers of the Machal and Aliyah Bet. The truth is that I came here as a private citizen to visit the place. I never was in West Point, so I asked a good friend of mine who's living in America, please take me to West Point, it's a good opportunity. I have a free day. And then they asked me if I'm ready to take part in this ceremony. And I said, of course, it's an honor for me to be in a ceremony for those who established the State of Israel. Just one remark about timetables. I was born 15th of May, 48. So the day that you fought in the battlefield of, I don't know where, I was in hospital. So coincidentally, this is the week of my birthday. And when I was asked about if I'm ready to speak about Mickey Marcus and his legacy, I said, of course, everyone who has any knowledge about the beginning of the IDF cannot but appreciate the contribution of the only one that I know about, who was colonel in one army and a general in the other one, Mickey Marcus in this case. He was a real friend, because you define friend as the friend in need, a friend indeed. And we were in a big need in those days. Israeli IDF was not exist. Few organizations, the Haganah, the Palmach, the Irgun, the Lehi, we didn't have an army. We had separated groups of sub-military, non-military organizations, which should be emerged together into a real force to fight the regular armies of Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, which invaded Israel in 15th of May, 48. Ben-Gurion understood that he doesn't have the capacity and the people to do it. And when Mickey Marcus was ready to come before the day of independence, when the Brits controlled the state, to help to organize it, it was a huge contribution to the ability of the State of Israel when it emerged in 15th of May 48 to fight the war against these military forces. And no question, without the contribution of so many volunteers of Machal, who brought with them a lot of experience from many other military forces. Either it's from the Russian military forces, the European military forces, some Brits, but many from the United States of America. Most of them from the United States of America. Again, one remark. My father was a soldier in the British Army in the Second World War. He was captured in Greece. He spent more than 3.5 years as a prisoner of war in Germany, released by American forces. In the first meeting with the American forces, they found 2 Jews in this company, and they began to speak Yiddish between them, so they will be sure that these are friendly forces, because they didn't believe what they see. So, in a way, it's a circus of connection between the military, the American military forces, and the State of Israel. Either it is through the Second World War and after the Second World War, when a lot of experience from the American side was brought to Israel to help to build the IDF as the IDF is today. Mickey Marcus was the first commander on the ground, commanded a group of brigades in the Independence War. Before Mickey Marcus, no one in the history of Israel commanded more than one brigade in one front. And Ben-Gurion made him responsible for the most sensitive area, the area which the Arab tried to take to separate Jerusalem from Tel Aviv. And his main job was to make sure that at the end of the battles, Jerusalem will be connected to Israel and not will be separated, isolated by the Arab forces. People don't remember. But the Egyptian army was less than 25 miles from Tel Aviv. and 2 miles from the heart of Jerusalem. And the Jordanian army was less than 15 miles from the Egyptian army on the seashore of Israel. If they would combine together, that was the end of the Jerusalem front. And the main task of those forces were to prevent this situation from happening. And if we have today a state which Jerusalem is the capital of, and some presidents even think about moving the embassy to Jerusalem, that is thanks to those forces who did the job in those very, very complicated days. And Mickey Marcus was the first commander in this front. But I think that if we look at Mickey Marcus' history, it symbolizes more than anything the special relations which exist today between the State of Israel and the United States of America. It's not just someone who came to help Israel. Just in the last year, we signed an agreement, MOU, in which the United States of America will provide Israel within 10 years $38 billion. American taxpayer to help Israel to buy in America the most sophisticated weapon systems. The first 5 F-35 outside the United States of America landed in Israel, not in any other country. And it's not an accident. The joint venture between the United States of America and Israel to build the anti-missile systems, Arrow 3 and David Sling, became operational in the last months. The best example of joint venture between the United States of America and Israel in this area. By the way, all around the world, experts are speaking about the ability of these two countries to join together for a joint project that at the end of the day bring to the world the most sophisticated anti-missile systems. The other day I was in Germany. The Germans complained about their inability to cooperate with the Americans in joint venture in some areas. And I said, our experience is totally different. When there is a joint venture between us and the United States of America, the results at the end are much better than expected when we begin the joint venture. And this is the situation about the David Sling and the Arrow 3. And so on and so forth. I cannot speak about the intelligence relations between the two states, but I think that it is very unique in our side for sure, but I think that for American side it's also very unique, and there are very few examples of such cooperation as you have with us relating to intelligence. And these are only examples, and there is one man who symbolizes in his action, as the colonel said, in his action, not by speaking about it, by doing it, these relations. It's Colonel Aluf Mickey Marcus, as we call him in Israel. His memory will remain with us forever, and I hope that that will be an example to cooperate in the future, because we both fight for a very clear future, which the center of it is freedom for people against oppressions. And that which we've done, if we will do it together, it will be always a great success joint venture. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
I now invite to the bema from the Department of Corrections, Chaplain Justin Van Butcher.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here today. Colonel Mickey Marcus was an extraordinary man who lived in extraordinary times. And his story is a story that's really about when the right conditions meet the the right causes, and when the right causes meet the right conditions. And this leads to a rare kind of person, a rare man, and a life that's impossible to capture in a dress like this. And I think even in a day like today, we can all try to touch on all of the different ways that Mickey Marcus made not only the world a better place, but his community a better place. And the more I looked into his life, the more I began to realize that his community was so many different kinds of communities. Colonel Marcus was obviously known as the soldier who parachuted down into the beach at Normandy on D-Day, and as a soldier who witnessed the horrors of Dachau and was changed by that experience. And that experience formed him. And as a chaplain, this is a kind of spiritual formation that really dictated what he did in the last years of his life. And of course, this led to him being the hero general of Israel's War of Independence. I'm coming here from New York City, and in New York City, we remember Mickey Marcus for a different kind of courage. He was the child of Romanian immigrants, and he grew up in New York's Lower East Side. He worked hard and put his time and energy into everything that he did. And in the Jewish community in which he grew up, it wasn't easy, and yet he persisted, and he gave everything his all. The fortitude and gumption that he showed during his years as the first deputy commissioner and then commissioner of the New York City Department of Correction are exemplary. Mickey Marcus was appointed to the position in 1934 by Mayor Fiero LaGuardia, the reformist mayor known as the Little Flower. Marcus showed his bravery and reformist credentials from the get-go. One of his first actions, in fact, was to lead a special police raid on the corruption-riddled, inmate-controlled penitentiary on Welfare Island, which is now known as Roosevelt Island. Marcus shut down that facility, and he eventually moved the inmates from there to a new modern jail that the city had opened on Rikers Island. Marcus worked with the Manhattan DA, Tom C. Dewey, to bust the infamous Lucky Luciano's crime organization. And as would become a pattern in his life, Marcus came to the Department of Corrections at a pivotal time in its history. And this goes back to the causes and conditions. Everywhere that Mickey Marcus seemed to be a pivotal moment. And every time he addressed that pivotal moment, he changed the lives of so many people. Later, he would help save the world from Hitler and help to bring to justice those guilty of war crimes during the Nuremberg trials and the Tokyo War Crimes Tribunal. And most famously, he helped secure the infant state of Israel, in which he was to lose his life. Marcus was only with the Department of Correction for 6 years, but during this time with us, he accomplished a great deal. He took on organized crime and corruption and changed the face of New York City. Like Marcus, and to some degree inspired by Marcus, we're trying to reform the New York City Department of Correction. He battled corruption, we're battling years of violence and neglect. He took on the top gangsters of the Depression-era New York City mob, and today at the Department of Correction, we work to stop local gangs like the Bloods and the Crips from committing crimes in our facilities. We're making progress in reducing the violence in our jails, yet we've got so much left to do. As we work to make our jails safer, we look at the heroism and the examples set by Mickey Marcus. A heroism and a solid confidence that I know inspires our current commissioner. The motto for those who have the honor of working for New York City Department of Correction is New York's boldest. Now this wasn't the case when Mickey Marcus was there. That being said, Mickey Marcus left an influential, indelible mark on our department because he was bold. He was bold in everything that he did. If we're New York's boldest, perhaps we could say that he was the world's boldest at every moment in every place that he was. Colonel Marcus showed us that no matter what the odds may be, all of us gathered here today have the ability to shape the world around us. In the face of challenges we cannot fully fathom, he endured, and he made the world a better place. Right now, I pray that the basic goodness and the solid character, the discipline and the passion, and the commitment to the greater good of society that Colonel Mickey Marcus embodies can remain in the hearts of everybody in this moment, in this temple, and as we leave and we go outside, and as we leave West Point and go back to our communities, to our families, to our loved ones, that the spirit of Mickey Marcus touches us. And I know that if I could only manifest 5%, 2% of what he did, I would die a happy man. In this way, I just want to reiterate my deep gratitude to be here today and in front of such an esteemed audience and family. And I just pray that this moment is one that we can hold in our hearts forever. Thank you.
We now invite Red to provide us with a musical melody from the SAR High School Choir, Mr. Kenneth Birnbaum, director. discuss the tribute of today, and before you leave the chapel, I hope that when you're going out the back door, you will notice a selection of black and white photographs, property of the Foreign Ministry of the State of Israel, of Jewish refugees taken off refugee ships and imprisoned on the island of Cyprus by mandatory British forces. So that's a very nice collection that we have, along with an explanatory placard. In honoring Exodus 47 in the Aliyah ships, I'd like to invite to the bima the Deputy Consul General of the State of Israel, the Honorary Amir Segai.
Shalom, everyone. Good morning. It's almost morning. On a personal note, it's extremely heartwarming. This is my third time I attend this amazing service and ceremony, and every year to see more and more people, and especially young people joining us. This has been the goal, I know, of the people sitting here, and this is amazing to see that it's happening. Dear veterans of Aliyah Bet and Machal and their families, Colonel Andrew Hansen, Garrison Commander of West Point, Rabbi Captain David Ruderman, Garrison Jewish Chaplain, Jeff Margolis, the President of the Avil, Chaplain von Boidos from the New York City Department of Corrections, Aluf Bemil Amidro. It's a great honor to have you here. Friends, I'm truly privileged to join you today on behalf of the State of Israel in order to commemorate the 51st annual memorial of the legacy of Colonel David Mickey Marcus, along with the other 41 American and Canadian Machal volunteers who gave their lives during Israel's War of Independence. I also would like to express our appreciation and thanks on behalf of all Israelis for the hard work of the American Veterans and Israel Legacy Corporation, who have never missed a single commemoration over 5 decades. Jeffrey, Cy, Paul, Rafi, Donna, all of you, thank you so much for making this a reality and keeping this important tradition. Your precious and important work ensures that the memory of these American heroes is never forgotten and permits their brave deeds to stand as timeless symbols of the deep bond shared between our nations, a bond that sadly comes here in the form of the ultimate sacrifice. This year, I'm especially privileged also to acknowledge the presence of my good friend, Ambassador Vasilios Philippou, the Consul General and the High Commissioner of Cyprus in New York, a true and strong friend of the State of Israel and the Jewish people. We are happy to see that the remarkable photo exhibition that the Ambassador initiated and helped create is here today. This exhibit tells the story of refugees interned by British mandate soldiers in camps on the island of Cyprus during the clandestine immigration to Palestine. And this important story is being remembered here today in West Point too. Ladies and gentlemen, 60 years ago, upon Israel's declaration of independence, we were attacked on all sides by 5 Arab armies. With the arms embargo placed upon us, we had nowhere to turn to. At that moment, it appeared as if a flickering light of the Zionist dream and the hopes of endless waves of stateless Jews was about to be extinguished. Then, in the moment, our fellow Jews and friends in the United States, in Canada, in South Africa, in other countries, showed up, volunteered to assist the difficult war of independence. With those volunteers from the United States and other countries who heard the call and came to save the Jewish state on land, sea, and air, we defended our country and guaranteed an eternal homeland for the Jewish people. One of those American heroes who lost his life was Colonel Mickey Marcus, a native son of New York City, who was a West Point graduate with exemplary service in World War II and at Nuremberg trials. Later, he had a successful career as an assistant U.S. attorney, as we've heard, and a commissioner of corrections in the city under Mayor Fiorello de la Guardia, another great friend of the State of Israel. Despite a comfortable life in the United States, Colonel Marcus left New York to become a senior military advisor to Israel, Israel's Prime Minister and Defense Minister David Ben-Gurion, and was awarded the rank of Brigadier General Aluf. He was one of the most important military commanders during Israel's War of Independence and helped design and organize the Israeli army. Marcus was one of the key commanders of the campaign to break the siege on Jerusalem, as we've heard from Major General Amitrok, to create later on the Burma Road, allowing convoys to bring in supply of water, food, and other supplies to enter the starving city of Jerusalem. Tragically, Mickey was killed in an accident in June of '48. Today, as we will stand soon, on this hollow ground, we honor Colonel Marcus' memory and thank him for his service. Israel's appreciation is embodied in the incredible relationship we share to this day with the American people and the United States Army. Our two countries remain united in an unbreakable alliance that has endured for decades and continue to promote the shared values of freedom and democracy for which Colonel Marcus gave his life. Today, Israel proudly welcomes American volunteers who, through the Garin Sabah, we have a few of them here, and we're privileged to have them serve and fight in the IDF. Please allow me to express deep sympathy and respect on behalf of the State of Israel to Rabbi Mordechai Rindenau, who is honoring our ceremony today with his presence. Mordechai, the father of IDF Sergeant Shlomo Zalman Rindenau, Zal, a lone soldier killed during his military duty last summer when a hand grenade exploded as he traveled in a patrol jeep near the Syrian border. Shlomo Zichrono Livracha, the fifth sibling in his family to make Aliyah from New Jersey to Israel and volunteer for an IDF combat role, is a true hero. He follows a long line of courageous Machal volunteers like Mickey Marcus and the other young Americans that have made Aliyah to join the IDF and serve the nation, some of whom paid the ultimate price while defending the State of Israel. Friends, in this year's ceremony, we also honor and pay tribute and mark the 70th anniversary of one of the most famous and heroic chapters in Jewish or Israeli history, the story of the Haganah ship Exodus, a ship that carried on board 4,515 Jewish refugees fleeing Europe on their journey to the land of Israel. The ship was manned by a crew of 35 volunteers, mostly American, and organized by Aliyah